The crystal chandelier above cast dancing shadows across the marble floor as laughter echoed through the opulent ballroom of the Four Seasons Miami. But for Layla Bryan, standing frozen in the center of a circle of perfectly manicured socialites, the glittering scene felt more like a nightmare than a dream. "Wait, wait, wait!" Cassandra Vale's voice cut through the classical music like a blade, her diamond earrings catching the light as she tilted her head with mock curiosity. "Did you just admit you have never been with a man? At 30, the influencer's perfectly glossed lips curved into a cruel smile as she exchanged glances with her entourage of equally polished companions. Layla felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment. She had only come to this charity gala for the new public library because her best friend Maya Rodriguez had practically dragged her here, insisting she needed to live a little and step out of her comfort zone. Now, standing in her simple black dress among women dripping in designer gowns, she wished she had stayed home with her books and her cat, Mr. Darcy. "I mean, honey," continued Cassandra, her voice dripping with false sympathy, "surely someone as quaint as you has at least tried, or are you saving yourself for Prince Charming?" The group erupted in tittering laughter, and Layla felt smaller with each passing second. Brandon Torres, Cassandra's on-and-off boyfriend, stepped forward with a predatory grin. "Maybe I could help you with that problem, sweetheart. Consider it community service." His comment sent another wave of cruel laughter through the group. Layla's hands trembled as she clutched her small vintage purse, the one her grandmother had given her before she passed away. She could feel tears threatening to spill, but she refused to give them the satisfaction of seeing her completely broken. I should go find Maya," she whispered, taking a step backward. "Oh, do not run away now," Cassandra purred, blocking her path. "We are just getting to know you. Tell us, what is it like being the last virgin in Miami? Do you have a shrine to your purity at home?" But before Layla could respond, a deep, calm voice cut through the toxic atmosphere like warm honey over sharp glass. "Excuse me." The circle turned as one to face the source of the interruption. Patrick Collins stood there, his 6'2" frame commanding attention even in his understated charcoal suit. His dark hair was perfectly styled, but his green eyes held a warmth that contrasted sharply with the cold calculation surrounding them. As the CEO of Collins Tech, one of Miami's most successful technology companies, he was used to commanding rooms, but this felt different. This felt personal. "I could not help but overhear," Patrick continued, his British accent adding an elegant weight to his words, "and I must say, I find your conversation rather disappointing." Cassandra's eyes immediately lit up with interest, her predatory instincts shifting targets. "Patrick, how wonderful to see you here. We were just having a little fun with—" She waved dismissively toward Layla, "our new friend." Patrick's gaze never left Layla's face, and she found herself unable to look away. There was something in his expression, not pity, which she had been dreading, but something that looked almost like respect. "Forgiveness me," he said, addressing Layla directly while completely ignoring Cassandra's attempts to recapture his attention. "But I believe we have not been properly introduced. I'm Patrick Collins." He extended his hand with the kind of natural grace that spoke of old-world manners and genuine breeding. Layla hesitated for a moment, acutely aware of every eye in the circle watching her. "Layla Bryan," she managed, her voice barely above a whisper as she accepted his handshake. His hand was warm and steady, and for the first time all evening, she felt like she could breathe. "Miss Bryan," Patrick said, his voice taking on a formal tone that somehow made her name sound like poetry, "I was wondering if you might honor me with a dance. The orchestra is about to begin a waltz, and I find myself in need of a partner who appreciates the finer things in life." The silence that followed was deafening. Cassandra's mouth fell open in shock, while Brandon's smug expression quickly dissolved into confusion. The other socialites looked between Patrick and Layla as if trying to solve an impossible puzzle. Layla blinked, certain she had misheard. I am sorry, what?" Patrick smiled then, and it transformed his entire face. Gone was the reserved businessman, replaced by someone warmer, more genuine. A dance, Miss Bryan, unless you would prefer to continue this stimulating conversation. His eyes flicked briefly to Cassandra, with barely concealed disdain, before returning to Layla with that same warm invitation. She does not dance, Cassandra interjected quickly, her voice sharp with panic. Do you, darling? I mean, look at her shoes. They are not exactly ballroom appropriate. Patrick glanced down at Layla's simple black flats, then back up to her face. Some of the most elegant dancers I know prefer comfortable shoes. They understand that grace comes from within, not from expensive accessories. The words hit Cassandra like a physical blow, and she stepped back as if she'd been slapped. Murmurs began rippling through the larger crowd as people started to notice the commotion. Layla felt a spark of something she had not experienced in years: courage. Maybe it was the way Patrick looked at her, as if she were the only person in the room worth his attention. Maybe it was the way his presence seemed to create a bubble of safety around her. Or maybe she was just tired of being the mouse in the corner, letting others define her worth. She began, then cleared her throat and tried again, stronger this time. I would be honored to dance with you, Mr. Collins. Patrick's smile widened, and he offered her his arm with the gallantry of a gentleman from another era. The honor is entirely mine, Miss Bryan. As they walked away toward the dance floor, leaving a circle of stunned socialites in their wake, Layla heard Cassandra's voice rise in indignation behind them. I cannot believe he chose her over. I mean, does he even know who I am? But for the first time all evening, Layla found herself not caring what Cassandra Vale thought about anything. Because Patrick Collins, one of Miami's most eligible bachelors, had not only defended her, he had chosen her. And as his hand settled on her waist and the orchestra began to play, she wondered if maybe, just maybe, fairy tales could happen in real life after all. The waltz began, and Patrick guided her across the floor with surprising gentleness. You dance beautifully, he murmured, as they moved together, and Layla realized with shock that she did feel graceful in his arms. Thank you, she whispered back, for what you did back there. No thanks necessary, Patrick replied, his green eyes serious as they looked down into hers. Some people mistake cruelty for sophistication. I prefer authentic kindness any day. And as they continued to dance, the rest of the ballroom watching in fascination, Layla began to wonder if this unexpected encounter might be the beginning of something she had never dared to dream of. 3 days after the gala, Layla still could not quite believe what had happened. She sat in the children's section of Lincoln Elementary's library, surrounded by colorful picture books and the soft chatter of second graders during their reading time, trying to focus on cataloging new arrivals. But every few minutes her mind would drift back to that waltz, to the feeling of Patrick's hand on her waist, to the way he had looked at her as if she were precious rather than pathetic. Miss Bryan, Miss Bryan! Little Sophie Martinez tugged on her cardigan, holding up a book about dragons. Can you read this one to us today? Layla smiled, grateful for the distraction. Of course, sweetheart. Gather everyone on the reading carpet, and we will have an adventure. As the children settled around her in their characteristic chaos of elbows and giggles, Layla opened the book and began to read. This was her sanctuary, her place in the world where she felt confident and valued. Here, her gentle nature was an asset, not a weakness. Here, no one cared that she lived in a modest apartment in Coral Gables with more books than furniture, or that she had never experienced the kind of romance she read about in novels. Miss Bryan, Sophie piped up during a dramatic pause in the dragon story. Are you a princess? The question caught Layla off guard. Oh, what makes you ask that, honey? Well, Sophie said with the serious logic of a 7-year-old, my mama saw a picture on Instagram of you dancing with a really handsome prince at a fancy party. She said you looked like Cinderella. Layla felt her cheeks warm. She'd forgotten about the photographers at the gala, about the way Miami's social media influencers documented every moment of such events. I am not a princess, Sophie. I'm just a librarian who loves books and children like you. But the prince was really handsome, Sophie insisted. Are you going to marry him? Before Layla could formulate an age-appropriate response to that loaded question, her phone buzzed with a notification. Her heart nearly stopped when she saw the name on the screen, Patrick Collins. "Finish the story, Miss Bryan," the children chorused, and Layla forced herself to focus on the dragon tail while her phone seemed to burn a hole in her pocket. Finally, when the children had been collected by their teacher and returned to their classroom, Layla retrieved her phone with trembling fingers. The message was simple, but somehow earth-shaking. "Miss Bryan, I hope this message finds you well. I was wondering if you might be free for coffee this afternoon. I know a quiet place in Coconut Grove that serves excellent books along with their beverages. If you are interested, I could pick you up at 4 p.m. Patrick Collins." Layla read the message 3 times, certain she was hallucinating. Patrick Collins wanted to have coffee with her. Patrick Collins, who could have any woman in Miami, was asking her, plain Layla Bryan from a small apartment with a cat named Mr. Darcy, on what sounded suspiciously like a date. Her phone buzzed again with another message from Maya. "OMG girl, have you seen the pictures from the gala? You and that gorgeous billionaire are all over Miami's social scene. Call me now." Then another notification, this one from her mother. "Mija, Mrs. Garcia showed me the pictures from your fancy party. That man you danced with looks very serious. Is he Catholic? Does he have good intentions?" Layla groaned and put her head in her hands. She had hoped to process the evening quietly, privately, but apparently the entire city of Miami had other plans. Her phone rang, and Maya's name flashed on the screen. "Do not even think about not answering me." Maya's voice burst through the speaker before Layla could say hello. "I have been trying to reach you since yesterday. Do you have any idea who Patrick Collins is?" "He is a businessman," Layla said weakly, walking toward the staff room for privacy. "A businessman," Maya shrieked. "Layla, honey, he is not just a businessman, he is the businessman. Collins Tech is worth billions. He is on the Forbes list. He dates supermodels and actresses, not librarians who live with cats," Layla finished flatly. "I did not mean it like that," Maya said quickly, her voice softening. "I just meant that he is way out of everyone's league, not just yours. The fact that he chose you, that he defended you like that. Layla, this is huge." "He probably just felt sorry for me," Layla said, though even as she spoke the words, she remembered the way he had looked at her, not with pity, but with something that felt like genuine interest. "Men like Patrick Collins do not dance with women they pity," Maya said firmly. "Trust me, I work in PR. I know how these people operate. If he was going to do charity work, he would write a check, not waltz around a ballroom with you while the entire Miami elite watched. So what are you going to do?" "What do you mean? Has he called you? Texted? Asked you out?" Layla glanced at her phone, Patrick's message still glowing on the screen. He asked me for coffee." The silence that followed was so long that Layla thought the call had dropped. "Maya, coffee," Maya repeated slowly. "Patrick Collins asked you for coffee." "Yes." "When?" "Today, at 4. Another long pause. Then Maya's voice, carefully controlled. "Layla Michelle Bryan, you are going to say yes to that coffee date, and then you are going to come over here right now so I can help you figure out what to wear." "I do not know," Layla said uncertainly. "What if this is all some kind of mistake? What if he realizes what do I have to offer someone like him?" "Stop," Maya said firmly. "Just stop right there. You are kind, intelligent, beautiful, and genuine. In a city full of fake people, you are the real thing. That is rarer than you think." Layla closed her eyes, feeling the familiar weight of her insecurities pressing down on her. "But Maya, you know what Cassandra said about me being inexperienced. What if he expects? What if he does not?" Maya interrupted. "What if he is interested in getting to know you, not jumping into bed with you? Some men actually value substance over experience, you know." Before Layla could respond, another text came through from Patrick. "I realize I should have asked for your preference. Would you prefer tea to coffee? Or perhaps we could visit that new bookstore cafe in the design district. I noticed you seem to appreciate literature." The thoughtfulness of the message, the way he had remembered her love of books from their brief conversation, made Layla's chest tighten with an emotion she could not quite name. "Maya," she said quietly, "what do I text back?" "You text back, 'Yes, 4 o'clock sounds perfect, and I would love to see the bookstore cafe.' Then you get over here so we can make sure you look absolutely stunning." Layla took a deep breath, her fingers hovering over the phone's keyboard. This was it, the moment where she could either step back into her safe, predictable world or take a leap into something unknown and potentially wonderful. She thought about little Sophie asking if she was a princess, about the way Patrick had made her feel during that waltz, about the loneliness that had been her constant companion for so many years. With hands that only trembled slightly, she typed, "Yes, 4 o'clock sounds perfect. I would love to see the bookstore cafe. Thank you for thinking of my interests." She sent the message before she could lose her nerve, then immediately called Maya back. "I said yes," she announced. Maya's squeal of delight was so loud that Mr. Thompson, the head librarian, poked his head out of his office to make sure everything was all right. "Get over here, right now," Maya commanded. "We have exactly 3 hours to get you ready for your date with Prince Charming, and I am not going to let you mess this up by overthinking it." As Layla gathered her things and prepared to leave the library early for the first time in years, she caught sight of herself in the staff room mirror. Her cheeks were flushed, her eyes bright with something that looked suspiciously like excitement. Maybe Maya was right. Maybe it was time to stop hiding behind her fears and see what might happen if she actually let someone get close to her. After all, fairy tales had to start somewhere, and sometimes they began with something as simple as coffee and conversation with a man who looked at her like she mattered. The Books and Brew Cafe in Miami's Design District was exactly the kind of place Layla would have discovered on her own if she had been braver about exploring the city. Exposed brick walls lined with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, comfortable leather armchairs tucked into cozy reading nooks, and the rich aroma of freshly ground coffee beans mixed with the vanilla scent of old paper. It felt like a sanctuary, and Layla immediately understood why Patrick had chosen it. She arrived 5 minutes early, having spent the better part of 3 hours at Maya's apartment being transformed from her usual understated self into, well, still herself, but with Maya's particular flair for enhancement. Her dark hair fell in soft waves around her shoulders instead of being pulled back in her typical practical bun, and Maya had somehow convinced her to wear a flowing sundress in deep emerald green that brought out her eyes. She still wore her comfortable flats. Some battles Maya knew better than to fight, but she had to admit she felt prettier than usual. "Layla?" She turned at the sound of her name and felt her breath catch. If Patrick had been impressive in a formal suit at the gala, he was devastating in casual clothes. Dark jeans that fit him perfectly, a white button-down shirt with the sleeves rolled up to reveal strong forearms, and a leather jacket that looked effortlessly expensive. His hair was slightly tousled, as if he had run his fingers through it, and when he smiled at her, she felt that same flutter in her chest that had surprised her during their dance. "You look lovely," he said, and the simple compliment felt more genuine than any flowery praise she had ever received. "Thank you," she managed, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear in a nervous gesture. "This place is wonderful. How did you find it?" "My sister Emma discovered it," Patrick said, gesturing toward a corner table that offered both privacy and a view of the bustling street outside. "She is a therapist who believes that books and coffee can solve most of the world's problems. I tend to agree with her." As they settled into the comfortable chairs, Layla felt some of her nervousness begin to ease. There was something about Patrick's presence that was simultaneously exciting and calming, as if he created a bubble of peace around himself wherever he went. "So," Patrick said after they had ordered, coffee for him, chamomile tea for her, "tell me about yourself, Layla Bryan. What makes you happy?" The question was so direct, so genuinely interested, that Layla found herself answering honestly instead of deflecting. "Books," she said immediately, then blushed. I know that sounds predictable for a librarian, but I truly love them. The way stories can transport you, make you feel less alone, show you that other people have struggled with the same questions you have. That does not sound predictable at all, Patrick said, leaning forward slightly. It sounds passionate. What kind of stories do you love most? Classic literature mostly. Jane Austen, the Bronte sisters, Charles Dickens. But I also love children's books. There is something magical about stories that can capture a child's imagination. She paused, studying his face for signs of boredom, but found only genuine interest. What about you? What makes you happy? Patrick was quiet for a moment, considering the question with the same seriousness she had. Building things, he said finally. Not just technology, but solutions. My company develops software for schools and libraries, actually. Systems that help make education more accessible, more engaging. There is something deeply satisfying about creating something that can make someone else's life a little bit better. Layla stared at him in surprise. You develop software for libraries? Among other things, yes. We created the digital catalog system that several Miami-Dade schools use, including Lincoln Elementary. He smiled at her shocked expression. I told you books and coffee could solve most problems. Sometimes they need a little technological help. You know about Lincoln Elementary? I make it my business to know about our clients, Patrick said simply. But I confess, I looked into it more thoroughly after meeting you. Your principal, Mrs. Rodriguez, had quite a lot to say about their head librarian. She seems to think you work miracles with those children. Layla felt heat rise in her cheeks. She exaggerates. I love working with kids. They are honest and curious, and they still believe in magic. Do you believe in magic? The question was asked lightly, but something in Patrick's tone suggested the answer mattered to him. Layla considered this, twirling her tea bag thoughtfully. I believe in the magic of connection, she said slowly. The magic that happens when the right book finds the right reader at exactly the right moment. The magic of a child's face lighting up when they understand something new. The magic of... She trailed off, suddenly self-conscious. The magic of what? Patrick prompted gently. The magic of feeling understood, she finished quietly. Of finding someone who sees you for who you really are, not who you think you should be. Their eyes met across the small table, and Layla felt something shift between them, a deepening of the connection that had sparked during their dance at the gala. I understand that feeling, Patrick said softly. It can be quite lonely, being seen only for what people expect you to be, rather than who you actually are. Before Layla could respond, her phone buzzed with a notification. She glanced at it automatically and immediately wished she had not. It was an Instagram alert. She had been tagged in a photo. The image showed her and Patrick at their table, clearly taken from outside the cafe's window. The caption, posted by someone she did not recognize, read, Miami's most eligible bachelor Patrick Collins, slumming it with the Virgin Librarian. Wonder how long this charity case will last. Miami social scene, Patrick Collins, downgrade alert. The cruel words hit her like a physical blow, and she must have made some sound, because Patrick immediately leaned forward, concern etched on his features. Layla, what is wrong? She turned her phone face down quickly, but the damage was done. All of her insecurities came flooding back, along with Cassandra's mocking laughter and Brandon's lewd suggestions. I should go, she said, starting to gather her purse. This was a mistake. Wait. Patrick's hand covered hers, stopping her from standing. What happened? What did you see? It does not matter, Layla said, but her voice cracked on the words. I should have known better. Someone like you, someone like me. People are already talking, already making jokes. People have been talking about me my entire adult life, Patrick said firmly, his grip on her hand tightening slightly. Let them talk. The question is, are you enjoying yourself right now, in this moment, with me? Layla looked up at him, surprised by the intensity in his green eyes. Yes, I am. Then that is all that matters. He paused, studying her face. But I sense there is more to this than random social media gossip. Talk to me, Layla. What are you really afraid of? The invitation to honesty in his voice was almost irresistible, but Layla had spent 30 years learning to protect herself. You do not understand, she said quietly. You are successful, sophisticated, experienced. I'm just a small-town girl who works with children and goes home to her cat every night. I do not have any experience with relationships, with men like you, with any men, really. Patrick was quiet for a long moment, and Layla braced herself for the polite withdrawal she was certain would follow. Instead, he said, "Would you like to know what I see when I look at you?" She nodded, not trusting her voice. "I see a woman who dedicates her life to nurturing young minds, who stands up for what she believes in even when it is difficult, who values authenticity over pretense. I see someone who blushes when she talks about things she is passionate about, and who has the most genuine smile I have ever encountered." His thumb traced gently across her knuckles. "I see someone worth getting to know, regardless of her romantic history or lack thereof." Layla felt tears prick at her eyes, but they were not tears of humiliation this time. "You make it sound so simple." "Maybe it is simple," Patrick said. "Maybe we have all been conditioned to think that connection has to be complicated, that worth is measured by experience rather than character. But I prefer to judge people by their actions, their kindness, their integrity. And by those measures, Layla Bryan, you are extraordinary." As if drawn by some invisible force, Layla found herself leaning slightly forward, and Patrick did the same. For a moment, she thought he might kiss her right there in the cafe, and the anticipation made her heart race. But instead, he simply continued to hold her gaze, letting the moment stretch between them like a promise. "Will you trust me?" he asked softly. "Will you let me show you that not everyone in this city is cruel and superficial, that some connections are worth the risk?" Looking into his eyes, feeling the warmth of his hand covering hers, Layla made a decision that would change everything. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I will trust you." And as Patrick smiled, that brilliant, transformative smile that made her feel like she was the only woman in the world, Layla realized that maybe, just maybe, she was ready to believe in magic after all. 2 weeks after their first coffee date, Layla found herself in a place she never could have imagined, sitting on the terrace of Patrick's modern mansion in Coral Gables, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink while he prepared dinner in his chef-quality kitchen. The house itself was a study in understated elegance. Clean lines, floor-to-ceiling windows, and warm wood accents that made the space feel like a sophisticated treehouse rather than a showpiece for his wealth. "You know," she called through the open sliding doors, "when you said you wanted to cook for me, I imagined something a bit more modest." Patrick's laughter floated back to her from the kitchen, along with the enticing aroma of garlic and herbs. "I may have undersold my culinary enthusiasm," he admitted. "Emma says I use cooking as a form of meditation, something about the precision and creativity required." Layla smiled, settling deeper into the comfortable outdoor chair. Over the past 2 weeks, she had learned so much about this man who had seemed almost too good to be true. He was indeed wealthy beyond her comprehension, but he drove a hybrid car and donated more money to educational charities than most people earned in a lifetime. He could have had his pick of Miami's social scene, but he preferred quiet evenings reading or listening to music to the glamorous parties that filled other people's calendars. Most surprisingly, he had been incredibly patient with her fears and insecurities, never pushing for more than she was ready to give, but consistently showing her through his actions that her trust was not misplaced. "Emma is coming to dinner tomorrow night," Patrick said, emerging from the kitchen with 2 glasses of wine. "I hope that is all right. She has been threatening to interrogate you properly ever since I mentioned I was seeing someone." "Interrogate me?" Layla accepted the wine with raised eyebrows. "Should I be worried?" "Probably," Patrick said with a grin, settling into the chair beside her. "Emma takes her role as protective older sister very seriously. She will want to make sure you are good enough for me. Should not it be the other way around? Layla asked, taking a sip of the wine and appreciating its smooth, complex flavor. I mean, you are the successful businessman with the beautiful house and the charitable foundation. I am the one who should be worried about being good enough. Patrick's expression grew serious, and he reached over to take her hand, a gesture that had become natural between them over the past few weeks. Layla, I need you to understand something. My success, my money, my house, none of that defines my worth as a person, and none of it makes me too good for anyone, especially not for you. Before Layla could respond, her phone rang. She glanced at the screen and sighed. It is my mother. I should probably take this. Of course, Patrick said, squeezing her hand before releasing it. I will check on dinner. Layla answered the call as Patrick disappeared back into the kitchen. Hi, Mama. Mija. Her mother's voice came through the speaker, warm but tinged with the worry that seemed to be her default setting. I have been seeing pictures of you with this man all over Facebook. Mrs. Garcia's daughter posted them, and now all the ladies at church are asking me questions I cannot answer. Layla closed her eyes, already anticipating where this conversation was heading. What kind of questions, Mama? Well, they want to know if he is serious about you, if his intentions are honorable, if he is planning to marry you. Her mother's voice grew more anxious with each word. Mija, you know I worry about you. You are so innocent, so trusting. What if this man is just playing with you? Mama, Patrick is not playing with me, Layla said, though even as she spoke the words, she felt a familiar flicker of doubt. He is kind and respectful and— But what does he want from you? Her mother interrupted. A man like that, with all that money and success, he could have anyone. Why would he choose my little girl unless he wants something specific? The question hit Layla like a blow to the chest, because it was the same question that kept her awake at night, the same fear that crept in whenever she allowed herself to be too happy. What could she possibly offer someone like Patrick Collins? I have to go, Mama, she said quietly. I will call you tomorrow. Layla, Mija, I did not mean to upset you. I just want you to be careful. I know, Layla said. I love you. Good night. She hung up and sat staring at the darkening sky, her mother's words echoing in her head. The peaceful contentment she had been feeling just moments before had evaporated, replaced by the familiar weight of her insecurities. Everything all right? Patrick's voice was gentle as he returned to the terrace, carrying 2 plates of what looked like restaurant-quality pasta. Fine, Layla said automatically, then caught herself. Over the past 2 weeks, Patrick had consistently encouraged her to be honest with him, to share her thoughts and feelings instead of hiding behind polite deflection. Actually, no, not really fine. Patrick set the plates down on the small table between their chairs and pulled his chair closer to hers. What is troubling you? Layla hesitated, twirling her fork in the pasta to buy herself time. My mother is worried about us, about your intentions. What kind of intentions is she worried about? The directness of the question caught Layla off guard. She thinks you might be interested in me for the wrong reasons, that maybe you see me as some kind of conquest. Patrick was quiet for so long that Layla began to panic, wondering if she had offended him or revealed too much of her own fears. When he finally spoke, his voice was carefully controlled. And what do you think? Layla found herself caught between honesty and self-preservation. I think I do not understand what you see in me. I think I keep waiting for you to realize that you could do so much better, that you could have any woman in Miami, any woman in the world. I think I am terrified that my mother might be right, that this is all some kind of elaborate joke or bet or experiment. Patrick set down his fork and turned in his chair to face her fully. Look at me, Layla. Reluctantly, she met his eyes, expecting to see irritation or disappointment. Instead, she found something that looked like pain. I am going to tell you something, Patrick said quietly, and I need you to really hear me. 2 years ago, I was engaged to a woman named Victoria Ashworth. She was everything Miami society thought I should want. Beautiful, sophisticated, connected. We were supposed to be the perfect power couple. Layla felt her stomach clench with unexpected jealousy, but she forced herself to listen. 3 days before our wedding, Patrick continued, I overheard her on the phone with her friends, laughing about how boring I was, how she could barely tolerate my tedious conversation about work and books, but that my bank account would make up for it. She called me a necessary evil on her path to social dominance. Patrick, Layla breathed, her heart aching for him. I called off the wedding, he said simply. And I promised myself that I would never again settle for someone who saw me as a means to an end, rather than a person worth caring about. So, when you ask me what I see in you, when you worry about my intentions, I need you to understand. I see someone who listens when I talk about my work, because she genuinely cares, not because she is calculating what it might be worth. I see someone who would rather stay home reading than attend the social events that most women in this city would kill for. I see someone who blushes when I compliment her because she is not used to being appreciated for who she truly is. Tears were rolling down Layla's cheeks now, but she could not bring herself to wipe them away. My intentions, Patrick said, reaching out to cup her face gently, are to spend as much time as possible with a woman who makes me remember why I believed in love in the first place. My intentions are to show you that you are worthy of love exactly as you are, not because of what you can give me, but because of who you are. He leaned forward then, and this time Layla did not pull away. His lips met hers in a kiss that was gentle and patient and full of promise. It was her first real kiss, and it felt like coming home and flying at the same time. When they broke apart, Patrick rested his forehead against hers. I am falling in love with you, Layla Bryan, he whispered. Not with the idea of you, not with what you represent, but with you, your kindness, your intelligence, your authenticity. The way you make me want to be the best version of myself. Layla felt something inside her chest crack open, not break, but open, like a flower finally ready to bloom. I am falling in love with you too, she whispered back, the words feeling both terrifying and liberating. But even as they held each other in the gathering darkness, even as Patrick murmured promises against her hair, Layla could not quite shake the feeling that this happiness was too good to last. And somewhere in the back of her mind, she wondered what would happen when the real world inevitably intruded on their perfect bubble. She was about to find out sooner than she thought. The charity gala for literacy programs was supposed to be their first official public appearance as a couple. Layla had spent weeks agonizing over what to wear, finally settling on a navy blue gown that Emma had helped her choose. Elegant without being ostentatious. Sophisticated, without trying too hard. As Patrick's hand settled on her lower back while they posed for photographers at the entrance to the Vizcaya Museum, she felt a mixture of pride and terror. You are doing wonderfully, Patrick murmured in her ear as camera flashes exploded around them. Just breathe. But breathing became significantly more difficult when Layla spotted Cassandra Vale across the grand ballroom, resplendent in a crimson gown that probably cost more than Layla's annual salary. Their eyes met across the crowded space, and Cassandra's smile was sharp enough to cut glass. She is here, Layla whispered to Patrick, who followed her gaze and immediately tensed. We do not have to interact with her, he said firmly. We can enjoy ourselves and support the cause without giving her any of our attention. For the first hour, that strategy worked perfectly. Patrick introduced Layla to various colleagues and friends, all of whom were gracious and welcoming. She found herself relaxing, even enjoying the conversations about education funding and literacy initiatives, topics she actually knew something about. But Cassandra was nothing if not persistent. Patrick, darling, the influencer's voice carried across the room as she approached their small group near the silent auction tables, Brandon Torres trailing behind her like a faithful puppy. How wonderful to see you here. And Layla, sweetie, you look... She paused, letting her eyes travel up and down Layla's figure with barely concealed disdain. Well, you look exactly like what you are. Good evening, Cassandra, Patrick said coolly, his arm tightening protectively around Layla's waist. I trust you are here to support childhood literacy. Of course, Cassandra purred, though her attention was clearly focused on studying Layla rather than discussing charitable causes. Though I must admit I am fascinated by this development. She gestured vaguely between Patrick and Layla. I mean, after Victoria Ashworth, we all assumed you would choose someone more appropriate. The mention of Patrick's ex-fiancée hit Layla like a physical blow, especially delivered with such calculated cruelty. She felt Patrick stiffen beside her, but before he could respond, Cassandra continued her assault. Not that there is anything wrong with this, she said, her tone dripping with false sympathy. I suppose everyone deserves their charity case phase. It is very noble of you, Patrick, really, though I do wonder how long the novelty will last. That is enough, Patrick said, his voice carrying a warning edge that made several nearby conversations pause. But Brandon, apparently emboldened by alcohol and Cassandra's attention, decided to join the attack. "Come on, man," he said with a crude laugh. "We are all friends here. No judgment. I mean, there is something to be said for inexperience. Probably like teaching a master class, right? Getting to be the first to—" He never finished the sentence because Patrick's fist connected with his jaw with a sound that echoed through the suddenly silent ballroom. Brandon staggered backward, blood streaming from his nose, while Patrick stood over him with a fury Layla had never seen before. "Patrick!" Layla gasped, grabbing his arm as he took a step toward the fallen man. "If you ever," Patrick said, his voice deadly quiet but carrying clearly through the hushed room, "speak about her that way again, I will do more than break your nose. Do you understand me?" The entire gala had gone silent, hundreds of Miami's elite staring at the scene unfolding before them. Cell phones appeared, capturing every moment of what would undoubtedly become the social media story of the year. "Security!" Cassandra shrieked, though she looked more delighted than distressed by the turn of events. "This man is violent. He attacked Brandon for no reason." "No reason?" Patrick turned to face her, and even Cassandra took a step back from the intensity in his green eyes. "Your friend just made disgusting insinuations about the woman I love. If you call that no reason, then you are even more morally bankrupt than I thought." Security guards were approaching now, and Layla could see the event coordinator hurrying toward them with panic written across her face. The carefully orchestrated evening was rapidly becoming a disaster, and it was all because of her. "We should go," Layla whispered urgently, tugging on Patrick's arm. "Please, let us just go." But the damage was already done. As they made their way toward the exit, Layla could hear the whispers following them, could see phones raised to capture their retreat. By tomorrow, the entire city would know about Patrick Collins' public brawl over his charity case girlfriend. The ride home in Patrick's car was conducted in tense silence. Layla stared out the window at the Miami skyline, her mind racing with implications and consequences. When they finally reached her apartment building, she turned to face him. "I am sorry," she said quietly. "I am so sorry that happened." Patrick's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "You have nothing to apologize for. I am the one who lost control, who created a scene." "You created a scene defending me," Layla pointed out. "But Patrick, this is exactly what I was afraid of. This is why people like us do not belong together. Your reputation, your business relationships, I do not care about any of that." Patrick interrupted fiercely. "Do you hear me? I do not care what those people think or say. But you should care," Layla said, tears threatening to spill. "This affects more than just us. What about your company, your charitable work? What if this hurts the things you have worked so hard to build?" Patrick was quiet for a long moment, and Layla felt her heart breaking as she watched him process the reality of what had happened. Finally, he turned to look at her, his green eyes full of pain and determination. "Layla," he said softly, "are you breaking up with me?" The question hung in the air between them, heavy with possibility and consequence. Layla felt as though she was standing on the edge of a cliff with safety behind her and an uncertain future ahead. "I do not know," she whispered honestly. "I do not know how to do this, Patrick. I do not know how to be with someone when the whole world is watching, when every mistake gets magnified, when my very existence in your life becomes a source of conflict. Then let me know for both of us, Patrick said, reaching over to take her hand. Let me show you that what we have is stronger than their gossip, more real than their opinions. Give us a chance, Layla. Give me a chance to prove that love is worth fighting for. Looking into his eyes, seeing the sincerity and desperation there, Layla felt her resolve wavering. But she also heard her mother's worried voice, saw the gleeful malice in Cassandra's expression, felt the weight of being the woman who had caused Miami's golden boy to throw a punch at a charity gala. I need time, she said finally. I need to think about whether I'm strong enough for this, whether I can handle being the target every time we appear in public together. Patrick's face fell, but he nodded slowly. How much time? I do not know, Layla admitted. I need to figure out who I am in all of this. I need to decide if I am brave enough to fight for us the way you just fought for me. As she walked toward her apartment building, leaving Patrick sitting alone in his car, Layla wondered if she was making the biggest mistake of her life. But she also knew that until she could stand beside him as an equal rather than someone he had to constantly defend, they would never have the kind of love either of them deserved. The question was, would she find the courage to become that woman before it was too late? Epilogue. 6 months later, Layla stood in front of the mirror in Maya's apartment, smoothing down the skirt of her emerald green dress, the same one she had worn on her first coffee date with Patrick. Her reflection showed a woman who looked similar to the one who had been humiliated at a charity gala almost a year ago, but with one crucial difference. This woman's eyes held confidence instead of fear. Are you ready for this? Maya asked, adjusting the delicate silver necklace around Layla's neck, a gift from Patrick that she had finally accepted after months of careful rebuilding. As ready as I will ever be, Layla replied, taking a deep breath. It feels surreal, you know. A year ago, I was just the librarian who got laughed at by socialites. Now I am about to give a speech at the opening of Miami's newest public library. The months following that disastrous charity gala had been the most challenging of Layla's life, but also the most transformative. After taking 3 weeks to think, during which Patrick had respected her space while sending daily flowers with handwritten notes, she had realized that her fear was not really about him or their relationship. It was about her own sense of worth, her own belief that she deserved to be loved and respected. So, instead of running back to him immediately, she had done something that surprised everyone, including herself. She had enrolled in public speaking classes, started attending city council meetings about education funding, and began writing articles about literacy programs for local publications. She had decided that if she was going to be Patrick Collins' girlfriend, she was going to be worthy of standing beside him, not because he needed her to be different, but because she wanted to be the best version of herself. Patrick had waited patiently while she found her voice, supporting her from a respectful distance while she built her confidence. They had started dating again, slowly, carefully, with new rules about boundaries and communication. And when gossip columns tried to resurrect the old narrative about the mismatched couple, Layla had surprised everyone by writing an eloquent op-ed about the classist assumptions underlying such coverage. The car is here, Maya announced, peeking out the window. And yes, before you ask, he looks devastatingly handsome in his suit. Layla smiled, feeling the familiar flutter of excitement that Patrick's presence still inspired. But now it was paired with something deeper, the solid foundation of genuine partnership and mutual respect they had built together. The new Lincoln Community Library was a beautiful modern building with floor-to-ceiling windows and reading gardens, funded partly by Collins Tech and partly by the city. As Patrick's car pulled up to the entrance, Layla could see the crowd of children, parents, teachers, and city officials gathered for the ribbon-cutting ceremony. Miss Bryan! Miss Bryan! Little Sophie Martinez broke away from the crowd as soon as Layla stepped out of the car, running toward her with the same enthusiasm she had always shown in the school library. You look like a real princess. "Thank you, sweetheart," Layla said, kneeling down to Sophie's level. "Are you excited about the new library?" "Yes. And Mama says you helped make it happen because you are famous now." Layla laughed, glancing up at Patrick, who was watching the interaction with the soft expression he always wore when she was with children. "I am not famous, Sophie. I just care about books and kids having places to read them." As they made their way toward the podium, Layla felt a moment of nervousness, not about Patrick's approval or the crowd's judgment, but the natural nerves of someone about to give an important speech. It was a healthy kind of nervousness, the kind that came from caring about doing well, rather than from fundamental insecurity. "Ladies and gentlemen," the mayor announced, "it is my pleasure to introduce Layla Bryan, whose advocacy for community literacy programs has been instrumental in making this library a reality." As Layla approached the microphone, she caught sight of familiar faces in the crowd. Emma gave her an encouraging thumbs up. Maya was beaming with pride, and even her mother, who had flown in from Tampa for the occasion, looked impressed by the turnout. "A year ago," Layla began, her voice clear and confident, "I thought my impact on the world was limited to the small library where I worked and the children who visited me there. I thought that was enough, and in many ways it was. But sometimes life pushes us to dream bigger, to realize that our voices matter beyond the comfortable spaces we have created for ourselves." She glanced at Patrick, who was watching her with unmistakable pride and love. "This library exists because people believe that every child deserves access to books, to stories, to the kind of education that opens doors and expands possibilities. But it also exists because sometimes, when we find the courage to stand up for what we believe in, others stand up with us." The applause was warm and genuine, and as Layla cut the ribbon with comically oversized scissors, she felt a profound sense of accomplishment that had nothing to do with Patrick's presence or approval and everything to do with her own growth. Later, as the crowd dispersed and children began exploring the new library with wide-eyed wonder, Patrick found her in the young adult section, running her fingers along the spines of books she had personally selected for the collection. "Proud of you," he said simply, slipping his arms around her waist from behind. "Proud of us," she corrected, leaning back against his chest. "We did this together." "We did," Patrick agreed, pressing a kiss to her temple. "Though I have to say, watching you command that crowd today was incredibly attractive, very authoritative librarian energy." Layla laughed, turning in his arms to face him. "Are you developing a thing for powerful women, Mr. Collins?" "Just one powerful woman in particular," he said, his green eyes twinkling with mischief and affection. "One who happens to look stunning in emerald green." As he leaned down to kiss her, surrounded by books and the cheerful sounds of children discovering new stories, Layla marveled at how far they had both come. Their love story had not been the smooth fairy tale she had once imagined, but it had been real, messy and challenging, and ultimately more beautiful, because they had chosen each other not just in moments of passion, but in moments of doubt and growth and compromise. "I love you," she whispered against his lips. "I love you too," he replied, ready to go home. "Yes," Layla said, taking his hand as they walked toward the exit. "But let us stop by the children's section first. I want to read Sophie a story about a princess who learned to believe in herself." Patrick smiled, knowing that the story Layla would tell would be at least partly autobiographical. And as they settled into the bright, welcoming space with Sophie and several other children gathered around them, both Patrick and Layla knew that their own story was far from over. If anything, it was just beginning.